I'm Ethan Cooper, 34 years old, and last year, I learned that nothing says, "I love you," like your parents serving you a court summons for finally getting your life together. It was a Tuesday when the realtor handed me the keys. The sun was out, the birds were chirping like they were being paid by the hour, and I stood in the middle of my very own living room, feeling like I'd finally punched my golden ticket. 13 years of working every crummy job in South Carolina, night shifts stocking cereal at price time, coding contracts nobody appreciated, delivering enough pizza to qualify as an honorary Italian. Every dollar I didn't have to spend, I stuffed into an account labeled escape. And I did it. I escaped. Or so I thought. 48 hours later, I got a certified letter that looked official enough to be from the IRS or maybe God himself. I almost tossed it on the counter, but curiosity, my worst habit, won out. I tore it open, and there it was, plaintiffs, Linda and Harold Cooper. Defendant, Ethan Cooper. My parents, suing me for $350,000 for reimbursement of parental investment. Apparently, I'd been racking up interest every time my mom changed a diaper or my dad half-heartedly clapped at my middle school spelling bee. I sat down on the floor. Not a chair, the floor. That's how unprepared I was. My keys slid out of my hand and hit the hardwood with a little metallic clink that sounded like the universe laughing at me. The smell of new paint, which had felt like victory 2 days ago, now smelled like the inside of a coffin. My coffin. After 10 minutes of staring at the number, $350,000, like it might apologize if I glared hard enough, I called the only person who'd understand. No, not my brother, Chad. The reason this whole fiasco was happening. Chad, the golden boy who could burn down a daycare and still get a, "We're just so proud of you," from mom. No, I called Simon, my friend and co-worker at the cybersecurity firm, and one of the last human beings I trusted not to stab me in the face. "Simon," I croaked when he picked up, "how do you feel about helping me commit legal murder?" He didn't even pause. "Who do we need to bury? It's nice to have friends." I told him everything over bad diner coffee. The suit. The amount. The reason. Because, apparently, Chad needed a house, and since he'd made a lifelong commitment to not working more than 20 hours a week at the artisanal candle shop, he and my parents had decided to make my house his house. "Bro, I'm sorry," Simon said, stirring his coffee like it had personally betrayed him. "But this is some Lifetime movie meets Jerry Springer bullcrap. Tell me about it." I rubbed my temples. I thought maybe I'd finally be the protagonist in my own life story. Turns out, I'm still the side character whose job is to prop up the golden child. Simon looked at me over the rim of his cup. "You know you're gonna have to nuke them, right? Like, legally." I swallowed. "Yeah, I know." "Good." He clapped me on the shoulder. "Because I'll be damned if Chad gets to gentrify your living room." I went home to my new house that night, my almost house, and I sat on the floor again, this time with a beer in one hand and the lawsuit in the other. I read every line. Every stupid, insulting line. My parents had even itemized my childhood like it was a Costco receipt. Braces for $1,800. Little League fees, $600. Groceries, 1996 to 2006, $29,000. Like I'd asked to be born, then insisted on the brand name cereal. I laughed. Actually laughed, which was alarming. But what else could I do? They'd turned my entire life into a bill. And somehow, they thought I'd just pay it. But the longer I sat there, the more a different feeling crept in under the absurdity. Not shame, not sadness, rage. I was done. Done letting them define what I owed and what I deserved. Done being the safety net for a grown man whose most significant accomplishment was a YouTube channel with 17 subscribers. And if they wanted a war? Well, fine. They'd picked the wrong nerd to tangle with. I spent my life tracking down hidden threats and documenting every detail. I was practically built for this. I got up, feeling steadier than I had in days, and pulled out the box where I kept every pay stub, every tuition receipt, every little proof of all the things I'd built without them. Let them come. I wasn't going to lose this time. If you'd asked me 6 months ago whether my brother Chad would try to steal my house, I'd have laughed. Because Chad was too lazy to steal anything heavier than a bag of Doritos. But here we were, me in the starring role of a lawsuit I never auditioned for. Chad wasn't just the golden child. He was the platinum, diamond-encrusted heir to my parents' love and pity. 2 years younger, but treated like a delicate Fabergé egg. At 16, my birthday gift was a laminated budgeting chart. I got a job at the Waffle Den to pay for my own car insurance. Chad, meanwhile, got a brand new Jeep. Big bow and everything. Mom caught my eye as I stood there in my grease-stained uniform. You understand, Ethan? Chad needs reliable transportation. Sure, wouldn't want the poor guy to break a sweat. Over time, I learned my place. Chad dropping out of college to find himself. Heroic. Me finishing a degree on nights and weekends? Overcompensating. Chad selling soy candles on Etsy? Entrepreneurial. Me working 60 hours a week. A bit much. When I bought my house, I thought I'd finally done something they couldn't diminish. I was wrong. The day after the lawsuit arrived, Chad called me. Against my better judgment, I picked up. Hey, Ethan, he said, voice smooth as discount wine. Crazy about the lawsuit, huh? Yeah, Chad. Real crazy. Look, man, it's not personal. I laughed, though it sounded more like a cough. You're suing me for my home. How much more personal can it get? It's just, Mom and Dad are worried. You know I'm trying to get my business going. You sell candles with pun names, I snapped. That's not a business. That's a hobby you post on Instagram. Silence. Wow, he finally said. I always knew you resented me. No, I said. Resenting you would mean I expected better. I hung up. No regrets. That evening, Simon came over with cheap pizza and the whiskey we'd been saving for better days. We spread out documents across my living room floor. Pay stubs, receipts, tuition bills, emails where my parents had told me they just didn't have it in the budget. You're going to represent yourself? He asked. I don't have a choice. He cracked open the whiskey. Good. They have no idea who they're messing with. For the next week, my house transformed into a war room. I dug up every shred of evidence proving my independence. One night, I found an old receipt, $245 for a used statistics textbook. I remembered paying in cash and eating ramen for weeks. I grabbed a Sharpie and scrawled across it, not your investment. Mine. When I finally finished, I had 3 binders stacked high. My life, documented in black and white. That's when their lawyer sent the settlement offer. They wanted me to sign the house over voluntarily to avoid public embarrassment. I forwarded it to Simon with one line. Can you believe this? He wrote back, you're going to torch them. For the first time in years, I believed it too. The day the official complaint arrived by courier, I'd been feeling almost optimistic. I'd spent the morning organizing my binders and convincing myself that maybe, just maybe, they'd come to their senses. Then I opened the envelope. It was thick. That should have been my first clue. The complaint read like a dystopian novel, $350,000 in damages for parental investment. They'd literally itemized my existence, like I was a secondhand sofa they were trying to unload. Braces for $1,800. Soccer fees, $900. Grocery share, $29,000. Emotional support, 1993 to 2010. I swear I'm not making this up, invaluable. If my life were a subscription, they were trying to collect the cancellation fee. I called Simon, and he answered on the first ring. Tell me you're kidding, he said after I read him the highlights. I wish. You realize this is extortion dressed up in a lawsuit, right? Yeah, and it's working. I haven't slept in 2 days. Simon sighed. We're going to fight this, Ethan. You're not going to lose everything because your parents think they deserve royalties on your existence. That evening, I did something I hadn't done since I was a kid. I called my grandfather. Gramps answered in his low, gravelly voice. Ethan, you sound tired, son. I swallowed the lump in my throat. They're suing me, Gramps. For the house. A long pause. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy. I'm sorry. I always hoped your father would be a better man than this. Why? My voice cracked. Why are they doing this? Because they can't stand that you made something of yourself without them, he said. They see your independence as a threat. And your brother. Well, he's the excuse. I pressed the phone to my ear, trying to draw strength from his voice. I don't know if I can do this alone. You're not alone, he said firmly. Your grandmother and I, we're behind you. You fight this. You hear me. I hear you. After I hung up, I stood in my kitchen staring at the lawsuit. I'd spent my whole life trying to earn their approval. I'd worked myself ragged, thinking that if I just succeeded enough, they'd finally see me. But there it was in black and white, proof that no amount of success would ever be enough. That night, Chad launched his campaign. I woke up to a photo he'd posted online. Him standing in front of my house, grinning like he'd already moved in. The caption, "New beginnings. Sometimes family helps you find your true home." It got worse. A few hours later, he posted a video of himself talking about overcoming adversity, complete with soft piano music. My parents commented underneath, "So proud of you, Chad. You deserve everything." I closed the app before I could throw my phone across the room. Within days, the calls started. Uncles, cousins, my dad's old golf buddy, all of them parroting the same script. "You know your brother needs this. He's had it so hard." Like I hadn't been working since I was 16, paying for my own life while Chad coasted. After the fifth call in a single morning, I started blocking numbers. My thumb was cramping, but at least the silence was mine. Then, one evening, my phone rang again, an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. "Ethan," a familiar voice said, warm and steady. "It's Grandma." My heart squeezed. "Hi, Grandma. Your grandfather and I want you to know we're proud of you," she said. "You built this life. You earned every inch of it." I swallowed hard. "Thanks. You listened to me," she continued, her voice sharpening. "This family has a habit of choosing favorites and punishing independence. It's time someone ended that cycle. Maybe it's you." After we hung up, I stood there, staring at my reflection in the dark kitchen window. Maybe she was right. Maybe this wasn't just about the house. Maybe it was about finally refusing to play the part they'd written for me. I went back to the living room and opened the binders. The evidence wasn't just paper. It was a story. My story. The story they'd tried to erase. And if they wanted to fight over it, I was going to be the one telling it. A week before the hearing, I got an email that made me want to put my head through the drywall. Subject, settlement proposal. Body, if you voluntarily sign over the deed to Chad, we will withdraw the suit and avoid public embarrassment. Public embarrassment. Like I was the problem for not handing over my house like it was a spare pair of socks. I forwarded it to Simon. "Me. I'm going to frame this." "Simon, frame it and light it on fire." I didn't reply, because as infuriating as it was, that email gave me an idea. A reckless, probably stupid idea. But if they wanted a show of dominance, I'd give them one. I called my parents. Mom answered. Her voice was cold enough to freeze a polar bear. "Ethan, I'd like to talk," I said evenly. "In person. Just us." There was a pause. I pictured her covering the receiver, whispering to Dad. "Plotting." "Fine," she said finally. "Tomorrow at 7. I hung up and set to work. First, I cleaned my living room until it looked like a real estate listing. Then I set out a plate of cookies, an attempt at fake hospitality. Finally, I charged my phone and downloaded a recording app. In my state, all I needed was one party's consent. And guess what? That was me. By the time they knocked, I felt like I was about to jump out of an airplane without a parachute. They walked in without so much as glancing around. My house, the one I'd poured 13 years into, and they didn't even look at it. Dad dropped onto the couch like he owned the place. "We're glad you've come to your senses." I didn't sit. "I haven't come to any senses. I want to hear it. From you." "What?" Mom gave a long, martyred sigh. "We're doing this for you, Ethan. For Chad. He needs this more than you do." I stared at her. "And what about what I need?" Dad's eyes narrowed. "You've always been fine on your own." "You mean you've always left me to be fine on my own?" He bristled. "Don't twist our words." I leaned against the wall, hands in my pockets. My thumb rested on the record button in my phone. "Let's be honest. You don't think you deserve the house. You just think Chad does." Dad's face turned red. "It's not about that. It's about doing what's right." "What's right?" I repeated. "Stealing from your own son to give to the one who never lifted a finger." Mom shifted in her seat, her mouth pinched. "Oh, stop being dramatic. Of course, we know a judge won't actually force you to sign it over. That's not the point." My pulse thundered in my ears. "Then what is the point?" She met my eyes, her voice low and sharp. "The point is pressure, Ethan. You were never going to just hand it over. You always have to make everything so difficult. So we had to make you see your place." The air left the room. I swallowed, forcing my voice to stay steady. "So this was always just a bluff." "It's not a bluff," Dad snapped. "It's leverage. You think you're so independent. But family is family." I took a slow breath. My thumb lifted off the record button. I had it. "Thank you," I said. My voice sounded calm even to me. "I think that's all I needed." They stared at me, confused, like they'd expected me to break down and beg. Maybe in some other life, I would have. But not anymore. As they walked out, Mom patted my arm. "I'm glad you're finally being reasonable," she said. I didn't reply. I just locked the door behind them and leaned my forehead against it. My heart was pounding, but I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks: certainty. They thought they cornered me. They had no idea they just handed me the evidence I needed to end this once and for all. That night, I sat at my kitchen table listening to the recording. Every word was clear. Every threat, every admission. Simon called as I was replaying it for the third time. "You okay?" he asked. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. "I'm better than okay. I've got them exactly where I want them." The courthouse smelled like stale coffee and disinfectant, which felt appropriate for the day I was about to have. I showed up early, clutching my old leather briefcase stuffed with binders. My entire life was in those files. Every late-night shift, every tuition receipt, every sacrifice they pretended never happened. Across the lobby, I saw them. My parents and Chad. They dressed for the occasion, wearing funereal black like they were here to mourn the death of family values. Chad even wore a suit, though it fit him like a kid playing dress-up. They didn't look at me, just huddled with their lawyer, a slick guy in a navy suit who had the air of someone who would happily sue his own grandmother for sport. Simon appeared beside me, all calm confidence. He couldn't sit with me at the defendant's table, but he squeezed my shoulder. "Remember," he whispered, "just the facts. No emotion. You're here to tell the truth." I nodded, though my stomach was doing backflips. The bailiff called us in. The room was smaller than I'd imagined, with polished wood and rows of chairs that made me feel like I was back in school waiting to be graded. Judge Monroe entered, a woman in her late 50s with shrewd eyes and an expression that said she'd seen every flavor of family dysfunction. She took her seat and surveyed us all like she was daring someone to try her patience. My parents' lawyer rose first. He launched into a speech so syrupy it could have given everyone diabetes. "These devoted parents," he said, gesturing to Mom and Dad with an earnest flourish, "sacrificed everything for their ungrateful son. And now, with their younger boy in need, they are simply asking for fairness." He submitted the invoice, the grotesque tally of my childhood costs, and passed around photos. Maybe me, in a high chair, oblivious that my existence would one day become Exhibit A in a lawsuit. I kept my face neutral, even as my insides curled into a tight knot. Then he called Chad to the stand. Chad shuffled up like he was auditioning for a sad reality show. "I just want a chance to build my life," he said, voice trembling in that carefully rehearsed way. "I've tried so hard, but it's been so difficult." I watched him fight back a single tear. The performance was impressive, I'll give him that. When it was my turn, Judge Monroe turned to me. "Mr. Cooper, you're representing yourself?" "Yes, Your Honor," I said, my voice steady. "You may proceed." I stood, feeling my palms sweat, and looked straight at her. "Your Honor, the plaintiffs have presented a story, but here are the facts." I opened binder 1 and began. I showed my pay stubs from age 16 on, highlighting every year I'd worked and paid for my own life. I presented bank statements proving I saved every cent for this house. I showed emails from my parents. "We can't help you, Ethan. We're focused on supporting Chad." I saw the judge's eyes narrow as she read them. I kept going. Tuition invoices, loan records, receipts. I laid them out one after another until they formed a trail even Chad couldn't pretend didn't exist. Finally, I looked at the judge. "Your Honor," I said, voice calm, "the plaintiffs are not seeking repayment for actual debts. They are seeking to punish me for being independent." The lawyer shot to his feet. "Objection, speculation." "Overruled," Judge Monroe said without looking up. I took a slow breath. Time for the final blow. "I'd like to call Linda Cooper to the stand." My mother looked startled, but she approached. She perched on the witness chair, eyes wide, her mouth working like she was trying to find the right combination of words to look like the victim. I kept my tone polite. "Mom, do you recall the conversation we had at my house last week?" She swallowed. "Yes. Did you say that you knew a judge would never award you the house or the money?" Her lawyer leapt up. "Objection. Leading." "Sustained," Judge Monroe said. "Rephrase." I nodded. "Did you describe the lawsuit as leverage?" Her face flushed pink. I don't remember." "You don't remember saying that you wanted to pressure me into giving Chad my house voluntarily?" "No," she said, her voice too high. I turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I have a recording of that conversation." The courtroom went so still I could hear Chad's sharp inhale. My mother's eyes went glassy. Her lawyer sputtered. "Your Honor, this is improper." Judge Monroe held up her hand. "Sit down, counsel." She looked at my mother, her expression stone cold. Mrs. Cooper, you are under oath. Did you or did you not make that statement? My mother's lips trembled. She looked at me, then at Dad, who stared at the floor. Yes, she whispered. The last thread snapped. I straightened, feeling the adrenaline leave my body in a rush. Judge Monroe turned to the bailiff. Please collect the recording. As I handed it over, I caught Chad's face, his carefully constructed pity crumbling into pure, resentful panic. I sat back down, heart thudding. For the first time, I knew it didn't matter what spin they tried next. The truth was finally louder than their lies. The recording changed everything. When the bailiff played it back, the room felt smaller, as if the walls themselves were leaning in to hear my mother's voice crackle from the speaker. Of course we know a judge won't give us the house. It's just pressure. To make Ethan do the right thing. Every word landed like a slap. I didn't look at them while it played. I didn't need to. I already knew exactly what expressions I'd see. Dad looking stoic and put upon. Mom trying to look wounded instead of caught. Chad trying to look anywhere but at me. When the last word echoed and faded, Judge Monroe was silent for a long moment. She lifted her gaze and pinned my parents' lawyer with it. This is an egregious abuse of the court's time, she said, her voice low and controlled in that terrifying way that only really smart, really tired people can manage. You have filed a frivolous suit based on no actual damages and admitted under oath that your goal was extortion. She turned to me, her expression softening just a fraction. Mr. Cooper, your preparation was exemplary. You have more than demonstrated that you purchased this property independently and that the plaintiffs have no legitimate claim. I swallowed, not trusting my voice. She picked up her gavel. This case is dismissed with prejudice. Any further attempts to relitigate will result in sanctions. We are adjourned. When she struck the block, the sound was like thunder. It was over. Simon met me outside the courtroom. He grinned and handed me a paper cup of cheap courthouse coffee. Congratulations, man. You just beat your own family in open court. I took a sip. It tasted terrible. It tasted amazing. They'll never forgive me, I said quietly. Good, he said, clapping me on the shoulder. Forgiveness from them has always come with strings attached. Maybe it's time you stopped needing it. He was right. As much as I wanted to believe there'd be some moment where they'd see me, really see me, it wasn't coming. And for the first time, I realized I was okay with that. The fallout was predictably unhinged. 2 days later, Chad posted a tearful video titled, Betrayed by My Own Brother. It was 8 minutes of him sniffing dramatically and claiming he was about to be homeless. The comment section was a carnival of people either telling him to grow up or offering to Venmo him $5. I didn't watch the whole thing. I didn't need to. Aunt Carol left me a voicemail so long it cut off mid-rant. She ended up parking outside my house twice in the same week, trying to talk. I filed a restraining order and installed a camera over the driveway. After the paperwork went through, she vanished like she'd never existed. And my parents? They sent me a letter. 3 pages of handwritten blame. According to them, I'd humiliated them, destroyed the family, poisoned Chad's spirit, and proven I was selfish to the core. I didn't respond. I fed the letter to my shredder, which felt poetic. The first evening alone in my house after everything settled, I sat in the living room. No binders, no legal pads, no strategy sessions. Just me, Buster, the scruffy rescue mutt I'd adopted, and the peace I'd never had before. I ordered Thai food and watched trash TV with Buster's head in my lap. When the credits rolled, I realized something shocking. I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. It already had. And I was still here. A few weeks later, my grandfather came by with a bag of tools, and that look in his eye that meant we were about to build something. You ready to finally finish that workbench? He asked. More than ready. We spent the afternoon sanding, measuring, laughing about nothing. I told him about the letter. He listened quietly and finally said, You know, sometimes losing people is just clearing space for the right ones. It wasn't profound in a greeting card way. It was profound in the way simple truths always are. Later that night, after he left, I stood in the garage and looked at the workbench we'd built. It wasn't perfect. Like me, it had knots and uneven spots. But it was solid. Real. Mine. Just like this house. Just like this life. When the last of the legal dust settled, Chad's GoFundMe had raised all of $180. My aunt stopped calling. My parents disappeared into the echo chamber of their own resentment. And I finally started to exhale. Now, when I open the door and step inside, I don't think about the fight it took to get here. I think about what comes next. A life defined by my own choices, not their expectations. A life without invoices for existing. Because they were wrong. They always were. This house isn't just walls and a roof. It's proof that sometimes the best thing you can do is burn the bridge they're standing on and build your own, stronger one on the other side.